that our military could be involved in these sorts of nefarious, in fact, heinous activities. Well, I'll tell you, many of them are engaged in this because they think that they're operating on a higher authority. In point of fact, in just the past few months, we've seen a constitutional violation of the use of war powers. And the claim? Because they're fulfilling the directives of the United Nations. They claim their authority to commit our troops, our citizens, to action on the directives of the United Nations. Well, members of the listening audience, we'll talk a bit more about what is known as United Nations Agenda 21 and how that fits hand in glove with the population control agenda that Dr. Stanley Monteith has been so gracious to afford us his time to discuss. Dr. Monteith, with your permission, sir, we'll take a short break. We'll continue our conversation in about 4 to 5 minutes, following along with this thread. If that's okay with you, we'll go into overtime with
all right,
knowledge.
Fine. We'll have to fit in about half an hour because I'm wearing down, but we'll go ahead another 30 minutes. And but remember, we have a visible government. We have an invisible government. I love my government. I fear the invisible government because it's made up of evil and wicked people. I'll stick with you for 30 minutes.
Thank you so much, my friend. I certainly appreciate it, and I fully agree. Folks, we'll be back in just a few minutes to continue our discussion with Dr. Stanley Monteith.
Creator and sustainer of all the worlds, whether those worlds are known or unknown to mankind. He is the creator and sustainer of all the worlds. Of all the worlds. Worlds. All the worlds. He is the creator and sustainer of all the worlds, whether those worlds are known or unknown to mankind.
And ladies and gentlemen of the bbsradio.com listening audience, welcome back to our continued discussion with Dr. Stanley Monteith, one of the preeminent voices in the field of the research of what's really going on around here anyway, as well as one of the leading authorities with some of these issues that we've dealt with thus far that touch upon the medical aspects, the diseases, the pathogens, the controlled agenda as pertains to population control. And Dr. Monteith, once again, I feel, my friend, that we could sit and visit for hours on end and still barely scratch the surface of so many of these topics that are relevant and essential for us to become more informed on. And yet I wonder if we could turn our attention now to some of the current events, so to speak, some of the geopolitical machinations around the world. Of course, the United States military is at this moment committed to multiple theaters of operation and activity, and I wonder if you might help our listening audience understand a bit more as to some of the underpinnings to these unprecedented events, operations, and headlines that we're seeing.
All right. Well, I think, first of all, I want to preface what I say by saying that we have a visible government, we have an invisible government. We have the government we elect, congressmen, senators, presidents, we have our court system, legislative, judicial, executive. Then we have an invisible government, and they're the ones who run it all. And of course, the visible government is simply a front. I mean, the congressmen get up and they pound the podium and they shout and they point, but it's all political theater. They have no influence at all. They could have influence, but they don't, because most of them are bought and purchased by the people of great wealth. We have the finest congressmen and senators money can buy. So with that, and then we have, of course, this invisible government. Basically, they control the military, the top military leaders. You don't get to be a four-star general under most circumstances unless you're willing to compromise everything and sell your soul. I say, yes, sir, I'll do whatever I'm told. And if I'm told to take my men off to fight in another no-win war, that's all right. I want to keep my pension. I want another star. And then, of course, we have the control over banking and, of course, over business and over our corporations. Why? Because we have a small group of people who've learned the secret of fractional reserve banking, how to make money out of nothing. And so because they can create money, and they do, that's what it's really not money, it's credit, but they've used it to buy up the banks and to buy up the corporations and to buy up the politicians and to buy off the professors, and so they control the great tax-exempt foundations. That is the invisible government. They work through what I call the Council on Foreign Relations, but you need to get my book, Brotherhood of Darkness. I mean, they work through a number of organizations, secret societies, some of them like Skull and Bones. Well, everybody says, well, you can read about Skull and Bones. Yes, but you're never going to see the secret initiation ceremony unless you go to the website put up by a friend of mine, William H. Kennedy, and that's William H. Kennedy, and you could actually see the secret ceremony there at Skull and Bones where they kneel before a replica of Lucifer. And that, of course, is the Bohemian Grove. Does everybody in the Bohemian Grove know it is a satanic organization? Certainly not. But the presidents and the secretaries of state and the leaders of our corporations, many of them run around naked in the woods and, of course, having sexual relations with children or women forced into prostitution. And we have a wonderful four-tape set on the Bohemian Grove. One of the guests is a woman named Kathy O'Brien.
Yes.
Forced into prostitution there at the Bohemian Grove. In fact, she has extensive sections about Senator Robert Byrd and about Dick Cheney. In her books, we carry them. Transformation of America and Access Denied is her testimony before the House of Representatives or the Senate. I can't remember which one it was. She gave extensive testimony, and it was immediately marked top secret and was never to be revealed, but they'd already put it in book form. That's access denied. But, of course, I said Richard Nixon, listen to the White House tapes. Richard Nixon went to the Bohemian Grove. He didn't like it. He talks about all those fags there at the Bohemian Grove and running around naked, but he wanted to be associated with the important people. After all, he was just the President of the United States. He wanted to be around the people who ran our country. And so Richard Nixon, even though he didn't like it, went to the meetings. David Gershom, a White House counsel for Bill Clinton, he wrote about it and how he eventually resigned from the organization because he was so disgusted with it. But if you've ever seen, there's a film, it's called Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes.
It was put out by a man named Stanley Kubrick. And of course, it shows the world leaders with their hoods and with their robes and with their candles. Stanley Kubrick died before the film was ever released. It stars Tom Hanks. Eyes Wide Shut. You should get it and watch it. And then watch Alex Jones' video, which you can get through my ministry, Alex Jones' video, the Bohemian Grove, and you see the leaders of the world with their hoods and their capes and their candles, standing before a replica of a gigantic owl. Now, who does the owl represent? Well, we have their secret writings. I think we have the only copies of their secret books. We were able to get them from a used bookstore. Somebody has sold them. And on the fly page it says, "We revere the owl. We revere the owl." And they have this feigned human sacrifice in front of the owl each time. The owl is a replica of Moloch, of Satan, of evil. And yet here are our leaders of our country bowing before the replica of Moloch, the owl. And in their own publications they say, "We revere the owl." We actually have that. And I don't know anybody else has even ever mentioned it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we could go into all the other secret societies, the Rosicrucian, the Lucius Society, the Theosophists, and so many more out there. You need to get my book, Brotherhood of Darkness. Read about the family, read about the Opus Dei, read about the Ascended Masters and the spiritual hierarchy and the occult hierarchy and the order, and they're all there in that or in our subsequent writings. Understand it's not imaginary, they're real. There are dozens of secret and semi-secret organizations, all that are bound together by a common goal. The effort to bring about a one world government, the effort to bring about a one world financial system and a one world currency and a one world religion to destroy Christianity and install the world leader. Now, I would point out for our listeners that they are in the process of destroying the value of our currency and impoverishing our people. They're doing that intentionally and purposely. Ben Bernanke says there is no inflation. I mean, core inflation is only 1.5%, maybe 2%. Well, but they define what core inflation is. Look at the price of food. Look at the price of gasoline. Look at the price of imported goods, and they say, that's not inflation. Core inflation is what we say it is. Are you going to believe your lying eyes? Are you going to believe us? We're from the government. We're here to help you. And we wouldn't lie to you, would we? And the answer is, of course, they're lying to us. They're in the process of destroying our inflation so they can impoverish our people, so they can impose this ruthless tyranny and kill off most of the people in our society, those who are allowed to live. And basically, this is not imaginary. You read their writings, they openly talk about that. In fact, as George Bernard Shaw says in his book, The